work session to order February 21st, 2024 at 6:03 through the high school.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Bear with me. I'm losing my voice back and forth, so I apologize in advance. Some laryngitis post a cold. Number two, I would like to amend the agenda to include number 4, become possible action to accept $5,800 donation from the bench warmers for the tennis windscreens. Making number 4 budget discussion further down. I have a motion for that.
So moved.
Linda, second.
So appropriate.
Second by Bob. And I'm gonna do a roll call. Starting with online, Laura and Amanda.
Amanda, yes.
Maura. Lucy.
Lucy Petrella, yes.
Lindsay Dahlhammer, yes.
Sorry, I'm here, Lynn.
Thanks.
I'm a yes.
Jamie Romack, yes.
Linda Darcy, aye.
Bob Moore, yes.
All right.
That's how it's gonna be today.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passes. Agenda is approved. Number 3, public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? You see no public comment online, 0 attendees currently. So we'll have another up soon. No, that's soon. All right. Number 4. Number 4, possible action to accept $5,800 donation from the bench warmers for the tennis windscreens. I know bench warmers president Henry Guy is here. I will hand it off to Henry.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay, Doug, Kim. So the bench warmer has been 66. We've done about $3 million to donations to the district. Just for the tennis windscreens, the boys and girls playing 18 home games a season. There's the 2023 girls rosters as high as 23 girls. The boys will be over a dozen this year. The girls team has gone to the Class S tournament the last 2 seasons. They have a player who has won the Shoreline tournament the last 3 years and that looks to defend it for the 4th year. The girls team has sent a player to state opens 3 years in a row. We are looking to replace the existing windscreens because they have deteriorated over the past several years due to improper maintenance, being left out a long time and over wind and being an incorrect product. The tennis windscreens have a specific purpose that creates advantages for players. Many people are not familiar with the sport and believe they're aesthetic, which is far from the truth. The purpose is to deflect the wind from changing the trajectory of the ball, and counting shot courts are positioned in an area of a wind tunnel in the spring tennis season. The screens make picking up the ball visually easier as they're a clear background that allows the ball to be seen easier than without. They assist in reducing outside interference that can be caused by other sports as competing at the same time. Softball fields are right on top, so they know. From the aesthetic standpoint, not the primary purpose, as we know, allows the school pride with the logos, which can be seen by people traveling through Pickett Lane, which is the location at the heart of the campus, and shows consistency with the logos of baseball and softball fields. Material is 80% see-through. Blue will have a blue shadow of a Devils logo, and the Devil logo will be centered on courts 1, 3, 5 on the north and south ends. East and west courts will not have screens because they will have viewing. The angled corners with gates will not be screen covered, and while the screens can be continuous, the sections for initial ease. So I got your handout so you can take a look at them. I don't have enough to print at work to not work. So you'll see the quote from the Sullivan screens, which we've worked with in the past. You'll see on the second page, you'll see what they'll look like. They're a little on the darker side, but behind the Devil, there'll be I'm sorry, I have only one left. Okay.
I just showed us.
Thank you.
So you'll see on the second page, there's a Devil logo. So that will have, so that's a screen here on the left-hand side. And there's a bevel here that will be all over the dark, so it'll be really, really pleasing to the eye. On the last couple of pages, you'll see the quotes from Sullivan Screens. It was 57 change. So for respect that, we came and let you know that they were coming. And so we offer you this gift.
It's pretty neat. We were just talking at building committee how, the new field's gonna have the Blue Devils logo on it, so it's neat to see that the tennis courts will have that too. It's gonna be really uniform at the complex, so, it's amazing. It looks awesome. But does the tennis team know that's coming?
Yes, yeah, the tennis team is well aware of what's going on, so are the tennis coaches.
That's awesome. Well, we can't thank you enough for this. I know I say it a lot, but
I make a motion to accept the donation.
I second that motion. All right, all those in favor to accept the donation from Benchwarmers in the amount of $5,800 for tennis windscreens?
Aye.
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 Maura and Amanda?
Amanda, I.
Maura, I.
No, you can guys leave. I don't know. I'm almost done.
Any
And,
opposed?
yeah, so they're already in, so I'm glad you accepted them. Because we've gone up a couple weeks, so I'm glad you accepted them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henry. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Henry.
Well, that'll be exciting to see. All right, number 5, 2024-25 budget discussion. We'll start off and hand it over to Kim.
So at the last board bed meeting, the 24-25 proposed budget was presented at a 4.48% gross increase and a 3.82% net. Three of the highlighted areas to talk about tonight, although we can talk about any of them, but the three that I would like to hit on are salaries, capital, and debt service. Salaries is, you'll see, is an increase of $1 million. However, that's not all, and I'm trying to pull up my other notes here, which I should have had ready to go. Here it is. That's not all just salary increases in, contractual obligations. So salaries makes up 2.55% of that 3.63. 2.55% of the 4.48 increase. So what that is we have changed the vacancy factor. I have changed the vacancy factor this year. So vacancy factor is not budgeting salaries at 100% to allow for attrition and turnover. So you may have staff that are on leave that are not, positions are not filled, or that they leave and you can't fill the position. You might fill a position at a lower rate on the pay scale. So there are often times that your salaries do not equal to the 100%. But that's also works in the other way, is because you could also work in the other way, whereas if you hire a teacher or a staff member with more experience than the person that left, then you could be a little bit over, but it typically works in the other way. And in the past, we were aggressive at a 96.5%. Most districts do not budget a vacancy factor at all. It's at 100%. But in the past, the district had some large surpluses and had built up somewhat of a healthy fund balance. And it was a decision made pretty much probably my first year here in 2017 to account for the budget vacancy factor to bring that down. Since we've done that, we haven't had the opportunities that we had back then. So we had a couple of big positions that were not filled for a little while. Like director of curriculum is one of them. That wasn't filled for a while. So there was a big surplus there before, this was back before Corey. But things that happened in the past. So we had a lot of teachers out on leave that were on unpaid leave that we were just paying daily or long-term subs. So we were able to cover that. Most recent years, we've been using the fund balance to cover that. As a directive from the board to get the fund balance down, it was too high. So we planned for that. We budgeted it. We knew we were going to overexpend salaries, but we knew that we were going to be able to cover it with the fund balance. We can no longer do that. We are now at a very low fund balance. And we are also running over our salaries. Currently, we are over in salaries by $285,000 or 1.25%. Not going to run into a deficit because we were able to cover it with the fund balance. But the point being, we're no longer able to vacant factor that high. So my proposal and what I put in the budget is a 98%. Still has a vacancy factor. The 98 seems to be the spot where we would have broke even over the past few years if we budgeted at 98. But what that does is that increases the budget by 0.82%. So 0.82% of the total budget, not of the 448, but of the total budget is an increase in just in that vacancy factor. That's not anything, that's not new staff, that's not contractual increases, that's just budgeting for more than we have in the past. And that 3.5 of 2% vacancy factor is a $470,000 decrease. So if I were to budget at 100%, the budget would go up by another 1 point something percent. So that's why that out of that million, that's why it's increased by $1 million. The second part of that is that there are contractual increases, obviously for union bargaining units, but also for administrative staff that are not in the union. There are regular cost of living adjustments in there. Also in this proposed budget, there are 2.5 FTE potential proposed increases in staff members. But what is important to note is that accounts for the $1 million increase, but for the 2 staff members, and I can go through, let me go through each one. I'm going to go through the position and the rationale. So there was one elementary position that is actually a reduction based on class size. So we have estimated 1 reduction for elementary. Middle school has an increase of 1, again, based on class size. So that washes out. That's not an increase or a decrease. What that could be is just a difference in salary. If you have someone that leaves, you have to hire someone new, but essentially that's a wash.
So for that, I'm sorry, Kim, for that 6th grade, what is the difference between the current 6th grade class and the 6th grade class coming up class size wise?
I don't know that
So we're
answer.
trying to figure that one out. Yeah, because that rationale should be known.
I think we have it in the book. Yeah.
I'll find it. You can keep them.
Okay, so then the next 3 that I list are going to be additions. So the first being the athletic trainer. So there's a difference between the athletic director and the athletic trainer. The athletic director has been on the staff and does different things than athletic trainer. An athletic trainer actually works hands-on with the students, injuries, preventative measures, concussion protocol, all that kind of stuff. Usually we contracted for that out. And you all know, I've been talking about that we were having trouble. There's been some complaints that we're not able to cover. Our athletic trainer left and we were kind of just piecing things together. Not having any luck finding one company who would be willing. We went to RFP twice. We, have made multiple calls. We did finally get a company who would contract to try to put a plan for us in for next year. But it's at the cost of $78,500. That's what it is. Now, we feel that we can hire an employee for $75,000 as an athletic trainer and not pay an outside contractor. What that does for us is that gives us full-time athletic trainer, and that gives us time within the day to potentially explore maybe if that trainer could teach maybe a pathway class for athletic training or concussion protocol or any kind of, so we would be able to offer additional services and that trainer would know our students and follow up with them and, preventative and all that. So for the same price, just a little bit lower, we feel an employee. And then you've got someone who's staying and hopefully not leaving if a better offer comes up. So that's what that trainer is about. Now, to say that if you remove that, that's not going to drop the budget at all, because I just have to put it back in purchase services. So it's budget neutral, whether you have an employee or you have purchase service, doesn't matter.
Would that be a 10-month or 12-month position?
We could do whatever we want.
At
with it.
75.
It's likely 10. Yeah, because during the summer, they really, I don't know, how did we talk about, would it be 10 or 12, but
We've talked about different things.
Yeah.
In summer, they're potentially used during the summer. Especially with new standards that might be coming out, so. that's something that we could
To be
discuss.
determined, yeah.
We do need to consider the benefits afforded to this new employee, which will radically increase the 78,000, right?
Sure.
What would it be, another 22,000 or something?
Yes, so depending on the level of benefits, it can be from 18,000 to 30,000. Depending on whether it's
Just,
family.
our current sixth grade has 98 students,
It's a
and
change of 18.
next year it'll be 160.
Thank you.
So,
And that, I mean, that is significant. I missed that on the.
I should have them.
But that's good for them to understand, because that was, I mean, that was a big question as to why we were increasing that sixth grade, and the rationale behind it, starting 18 kids, it is a whole class size. It falls just under the target class size of 21 to 25, so.
Thank you. And it's just at this point that I know it's just that fifth grade bubble that's moving to sixth grade. So this position would hopefully follow them to seventh grade, and it would just.
That was my next question too, not to go backwards from the trainer, but is that, so that is a temporary bubble to fix and might continue on, so the seventh grade then will have an increase next year.
That's what we're projecting based on what the
Yes.
numbers look like now.
Yep.
I mean, we have to see who moves in and moves out. And
Right, yeah,
numbers,
'cause-
but
But like with anything, like, the elementary, based on class size, we reduced one. So it all depends on class size. So every year we look at class size and staffing.
Right.
So if we don't need that position anymore, we didn't need it anymore. The next one was maintenance. That's a proposed 1.0 FTE. But that is also, as I mentioned with the athletic trainer, again, it's just a 1-for-1. I've removed outside contractors from purchase services in the amount of 75,000, and our proposal is to pay 65,000 for a maintenance person. There would be benefits, so it is a little bit more with benefits, providing, I can't even say that because they can budget for benefits, that doesn't mean the person's gonna take them if they have spousal benefits or whatever. But, so that right there would not, it might tweak the budget a little bit, but not really even all that much. And, there is a need for it. I'm not sure if anyone really realizes the need for it. Not only would it be not using outside contractors, but we would have a full-time in-house person who we would be able to have do a plethora of things that we now have to hire out, or that get put on this, and it gets put on a list by priority. Will school open tomorrow if this doesn't get done? Or what is the bottom? It's a minor inconvenience that needs to be fixed. And the list is very long. But in addition to that, it's preventative maintenance. So it's not just fixing, being reactive to things, but it's making sure that these things don't break down and they don't create costly repairs. So going forward, and the 75,000 that I removed, and I know that there's going to be more. I just didn't want to be too aggressive, but I wanted to cover the salary. But that really is for carpentry. It's general repairs, it's paint, it's handyman services, it's playground maintenance, it's fence repair and replacement, power washing, storm drain cleaning, field and court startup and shutdown, windscreens. Right now I'm not great, we get volunteers, but right now we pay somebody to do that. Turf maintenance, moving. There's a lot of, and then the preventative maintenance would be in the area of like the fire sprinklers, the HVAC, pumps, the filter replacements, all those kind of things that right now we're reacting with. So
Now,
that's
do
the
you
picture.
think that possible maintenance position might be a position that could be reduced if we are down to 3 schools? Is it because we have 5 schools and it's hard to get everyone out to them? Or do you think that maintenance wise, it's something we're gonna need?
So you want to take care of your new school, and it'll be a big school. So I don't see a reduction in that, because I see us taking care of things in real time instead of trying to play catch up. So I wouldn't recommend that for a decrease. And I also think if that were the case, you're not going to get a quality applicant, because if I know I only have 3 years, I'm going to,
Right, I just think, I think that's important to know too, and it's important for numerous reasons, but one of them being that, we talk about 5 schools right now, and Eric is really drawn very thin, and he's amazing, and he does a lot, but there's just so much that one person can do. And if we're looking at like contractors that are coming in, you're looking at these contractors not having workers, so things can get put off and not done because they get a worker out to help. So I think having someone dedicated for him is, I think it's going to save us over the course of things breaking that we can't get to until someone can come out to do it.
and he certainly tries to do everything himself, which is not always the best, because he could be fixing something that's low on the priority scale, but that's been a loud staff member. And well, something goes wrong, like something starts leaking, and then he has to prioritize, of course, he has to leave and go to the priority. So I think that keeping our track of and keeping preventative maintenance is going to be key. He can do a lot of things. He's always out turning a wrench, which is great. I just had a full district. We did a security walkthrough on Friday, and there were a number of things that people mentioned to me where this doesn't lock, this doesn't do this doesn't do that. Not to Eric's discredit at all, just school's still going to open if that doesn't lock. He just can't get to it. So, there were a lot of things that we would be able to take care of internally and get way more done for the same price, maybe just a little bit more because of benefits, as we would with outside contractors. We'll get way more done because you have a contractor come in for a plumbing issue. They just handle the plumbing, and then you're paying their overhead, you're paying their travel, you're paying them at a premium, then you're paying somebody at an hourly rate. So I think it's an important addition, but you guys all have to decide that.
And can I ask, is there a reporting system, like somebody who's working within a building, can they report other than just an email, some official place? We use something called School Dude, which works very good. It's like you put please get this done by this date. You have to justify the urgency of it.
It's called
Spiceworks, yeah.
Spiceworks.
Yeah.
So it's similar to School Dude.
Yep.
And Eric brought that out when he came in, and then staff seemed to be using it, and it can prioritize it. You can put your notes in, what you need to order parts or whatever, and things like that.
That's a great accountability tool too,
Yeah.
to say, okay, look, we completed this at this date and so on. Yeah, great.
I'm happy to talk further about this. I mean, I firmly believe that this is not because Eric needs the help. This is things a district needs more than what Eric can give in 24 hours a day.
And also Todd is here specifically if there were questions around the trainer.
I had a question in the line item budget. Excuse me, the athletic and the Conyers rod goes up by
Yeah.
81,000.
Yeah.
That includes, as you're saying, includes an increase from Todd to be an administrator.
Yeah.
And
Your question, can I read your question?
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, we have questions
And
from the
the-
board. We're gonna go through those after Kim, but we can go through that one.
So the athletic director was upgraded to administrator position. On page 1, line item, the budget shows an increase in salaries of 81,000. So yes, the athletic director is now in the administrative position. It was just a function of administrative negotiations and state statutes. The 81,000 increase is not a raise to Todd for 81,000. That's the athletic trainer.
I'm just saying you put the trainer budget in there.
Correct. So that is the trainer in there, the 81,000. Should you not accept the trainer in that position, that 75 comes out and it goes into purchase services. The trainer, is the trainer certified? You had asked. The trainer position would not be certified at this time, but we would like to explore some kind of alternative certification to teach some kind of classes, and maybe some medical help with the nurses and things like that. So to get back, so do we want to ask any trainer questions so we can?
Is there another tone around? And I was virtual when you guys got the budget.
Oh.
Do you have an extra copy?
So I might.
can come.
Here, you take my hand. No, it's great. She's got it. Right?
I can get you that copy later.
Oh,
I know. I was like, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess I'll move on to the 0.5. So I told you the 0.5 is an increased caseload for a multi-language learner. We've had students come in, and Jen has given me the numbers here somewhere, that we are up from our caseload from last year, and we are not able to give them the required statutory service hours at a 0.5. Right now, we have a 0.5 multi-language certified staff member, and we're asking for 1.0. That would be an addition of $37,000.
was there a change in the course though? Do we know?
Yep. So we have 21 students identified. We had 4 students enter the district with a speaking very limited English. So that's, if I'm trying to, so this is an increase from 2 over the last 3 years. So I guess we had 2.
So it might be easier. So the current position is listed as a coordinator of multilingual learners with very limited instructional time. And what we're finding is that due to the increase in need in instructional time, as well as the coordination of services, we don't have that. And so what we're looking at is not just the instructional time, it's both. So the instructional time we have right now, we have 21 students. 7 of our 21 students are at what the state calls a level 1 in the state testing, which is very limited proficiency in English. At level 2, we have 3 students. At level 3, we have 8 students, and at level 4, we have 3 students. And so when you're looking at the levels, so we're closer to level 1, so level 1, 2, and 3, the hours of instructional time increase based on what level students are at. And so the Department of Education came out with some pretty strong guidance on what the requirements are. And we're looking at a newcomer for level 1, we're looking at 4 to 5 days a week of 1 hour of instruction per day. So if we're looking at 7 students just in level 1 at almost up to an hour a day, it's significant.
It's all individual,
What's that?
it's all individual.
Yes, well, it can be in it can be in a small group, certainly. But that's 1 person across 5 buildings. At
And so,
12 different
so people
levels.
understand it's very similar to the statutes for special education with this, so this is something we have to provide. It's an increase that is necessary to comply with.
Yeah, to comply with the Office of the Civil Rights, yes.
We have 8 kids in the monitoring stage who have tested out for loss.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. oh,
So
yeah.
that's,
Yes.
those kids are also gonna be.
Yes,
on the-
they're still being monitored, and our kids that are in monitor stage aren't part of the 21.
Right, so there's
And
even
so,
more.
yes, and so that's part of the case coordination piece
Right.
of that. So her caseload would really be closer to 25 kids that she's monitoring services across district, as well as hopefully helping teachers and our interventionists and special ed teachers provide the instruction.
That's what I was asking too. Are they modifying work in order for them to?
Yeah.
So that 0.5 is not.
Translating findings. Yep, modifying, translating, finding services, creating service plans, monitoring service plans, helping with communication and all of those things.
And
So,
think of
I'm
it,
sorry.
current position, this is creating a career position for full-time instead of part-time.
Yeah, instead of a 0.5, the request is to increase it to a full-time.
Do we anticipate the same person willing to do that as a full time?
I think we'd have to post it, but
I do think that's just a valuable asset for the school community. These, somebody that's multilingual potentially might inspire other students to say, maybe I'm behind in this world. Maybe I need to learn Spanish. Maybe I need to learn German, French, whatever. I mean, I think it's just a fabulous addition. Certainly doesn't come without cost, but we have to do it. And I think the district will be better off for it.
and as an
Really support them.
instructor, it's a heavy load on our teachers right now to try to provide the services independently of somebody helping out in a more consistent teaching model.
I found within my own district, there's some students who maybe are a little bit further along with their progress. We have the elevation monitoring tool, but they can certainly be great mentors as well, to at least provide encouragement like, yeah, look, it gets better. It's okay. And I have seen the dramatic changes for the positive. And that's a great thing.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
I guess we would ask, I haven't heard anyone's voice concerns in opposition of any of these 3. And it's helpful for us to know, especially with the maintenance and the trainer, if we're gonna think about going back to a contracted, or if you guys are comfortable with this staying in for now.
And I think it's 4. We're talking about the trainer maintenance, for multi-language in the middle school. Okay.
Yeah, for net 2.5.
I think the trainer is, very important to maintain health for the kids. There's a lot of new requirements for concussion and all other things, and with the number of students we have in various sport athletics, it's just.
And we're not
We're
just
at a
talking
big-
about treating injuries, we're talking about
big-
preventing injuries too. This,
Yeah.
the trainer, a good trainer in a good district, you know, is doing the work to really monitor the kids for prevention and.
We're a big risk, I think, for not having a trainer.
We also believe, and I don't know if Todd, you want to speak to this at all, that having the consistent person who can build relationships, is that something that would be preferred to the current system?
I mean, yeah, our current system is a per diem system that just someone is there for games and can treat an incident when it occurs. But there's no continuity. The kids don't feel comfortable because it's a different person every game potentially. And this is a stark contract from my previous 4 years when we had someone that was consistent, albeit a little, in transition between two trainers, but you have a consistent, you develop a relationship. It's a similar thing to a classroom teacher. You develop a classroom relationship with that person and, you can help prevent things down the line in the educational system as opposed to just someone showing up as a substitute. They may be certified in that particular specialty, but they certainly don't add for any kind of continuity in student care or preventative, as Lindsay has said, that's so much of their job is to be preventative. The current model that you have per diem stuff, there's no preventative because there's no relationship with those kids.
I think I'm all for it, just as, that particular tension to be kids that they're gonna be full-time, then they should be working full-time, right? And then also how they're gonna be evaluated and by whom.
Now with that, with Todd going up to the admin unit, is that something that he would then be evaluating the trainer and not, high school principal?
That would be my assumption. Have you ever seen it any other way?
I mean, athletic trainers have not, because they're not teachers, they've been evaluated differently. So
Right.
typically, I'd have to look into how my colleagues have done it, but this is a newer trend. So I need to look into
Figure it
it
out.
as far as that.
Yeah, it might be a
Makes
different
sense.
tool, probably should be.
Right, right, and I was thinking you were talking about them potentially teaching. In which case,
Yeah, if that happens, we're gonna have to get an MOU with the teachers union, because, they've already kind of weighed in a little bit on that, so. There's a few more hoops to jump through. We don't want to promise that that's going to happen. But I think to your point, I'm of the same belief, and I've seen a system whereby a trainer who could also teach a class potentially becomes a win-win. Kids get to see them in a different light. You tap that expertise, and also we feel like we're gainfully employing them at a full-time salary.
Having an on-staff maintenance person, I think makes a lot of sense. You have consistency with repairs that need to be done. One of the biggest issues we've had is being able to keep up with maintenance because of the restrictions on how much can be put aside for capital and budget and things like that. So having someone here means every day you've got somebody on staff that can go out and fix things.
They know the building.
And they know the
Know
building.
the systems.
Plus they have a connection because they're employees. They're not strangers coming into a building.
And that wouldn't mean that Eric would step back at all. There's definitely enough work for Tim.
Yeah.
How many people do we have in maintenance now? Custodians not considered maintenance?
Correct. They're not considered. They do help out here and there where they can, but they're not expected to do.
So
it.
it's
So it's
just
just their
Patty.
own contract.
So it's just Patty and,
Correct. And Patty's more of an administrative role, so it's really just Eric. And Eric was not hired necessarily to turn wrenches. He was, hired to also supervise projects and whatnot, but he does whatever he needs to do. And he knew that going in that there was gonna be a mix.
He's getting it done.
He's getting it done.
Stretched
but
thin.
Yeah.
And to answer your earlier question, I don't disagree with Kim, but I don't think putting this in is a guarantee that it stays in forever. I think, let me be positive here. When we get into a 3-school situation, there may be a period of time where those other 2 schools are still ours. But I think once we're fully only 3, then we would reevaluate and let you guys know the way we would do every year through this process.
Even if some buildings weren't used and they were leased out, we would still be responsible for
We
the
could be,
maintenance.
that's right.
Okay, so that's salaries. The other issue to talk on tonight about would be the capital reserve. So this budget assumes a 2% funding for the capital reserve.
Kim, can I, if we're talking about salaries, we're also talking about staffing? Or do you want to say staffing later, or at the same time we're doing?
So are you gonna, is it the question that you have on the?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read those questions after, if that's okay, and I'll let me go through the high level and then we'll go to there. So capital is assuming a 2% fully funded, or 778,000, exactly what we did last year. The areas that have been identified again, of course, are proposals, but they're also hoping that there will be some bonding in the future for capital needs at Strong and Coggin-Chock, because we're talking about the 3 schools, but there could, there are needs at these 2 schools as well. So the first would be the PA systems. Now that is not a PA system for outside. It's not in the gym. It's the office PA systems. That's the all call. And they are very old. They go back to, the oldest is 1996 at Strong. And is new as 2003. So they are very old. Lyman did have a clock replacement in 2012, but what we're seeing is we upgraded our phone system, which was very old as well. We needed to go to a new phone system. So we went with that, which is digital, and these PA systems are still analog. And what's happening is they're not talking great, the digital and the analog, and it's taking a series of buttons to get on the overhead. Where this becomes more than just an inconvenience is security. So I went through, every school had a lockdown drill this week, and I listened to the PA systems because the administrators have been saying, reporting back that they're very jumbled, you can't hear, and it is a safety issue. And I heard what they're talking about, and it is, there's that echoes, there's that screech, nobody knows what to do. So we're putting this in as a proposal to upgrade the PA part only. So this is not a replacement or anything, but to upgrade it to digital. And that would be $116,000. And that can be broken down by 35,000 at Coggin-Chock, 25 at Strong, 18,000 for Lyman, 20,000 for Memorial, and 18,000 for Brewster. Every single one has the same issues. And again, it's a security thing. It's not an inconvenience thing. We are having teachers practice placing the buildings down on lockdown from their classrooms, because statistics show that's typically how things have been happening, rather than not so much from the office. And this is where we're running into the problems. Sometimes the office sounds okay, but the classrooms are not the best. And we've included all 5 schools because it's a safety issue. The next item on here was glycol. And that's kind of an ongoing, that's a savings. We're not going to be actually replacing any glycol in the next year, but within 5 years, we have to replace it. And Eric's telling me the high school alone, let me see, each site estimated to cost $100,000 for each site. And since the high school has the highest glycol, it's $300,000. So we're going to need 300 plus 400, we're gonna need $700,000 to replace our glycol at the schools. Again, if we do a preschool option down the road, then we lose 2 of those 100,000s at the other schools. And, then but this doesn't save the 700 anyways, it's just starting to get there. And if we do a bonding for Strong in Coggin-Chock, then certainly that would be included in it. And then what we would do with this 50,000, it's 50,000. It is such a small amount, but it's just starting over the next 5 years, with the thought that maybe we don't have to do it because there'll be alternative resolutions.
Is there actually a bond for glycol replacement?
Have we bonded for that? No.
No, I mean, could you?
Sure.
It's not a structure.
We could also do a bank loan too. Doesn't have to be a bond, but we could absolutely do that, just that one thing.
I'm just, it's something that replaces, it's not really a capital activity, I'm just concerned that if you had to replace it because we had a leak or something, could you actually bond it?
Yeah.
Sure.
And bonding and bank loan, really is the same thing. The only
Yeah,
difference is how it's worded on the referendum.
Can I ask what glycol is? Maybe other people know, but I don't.
I
just Googled it, so.
Oh, can you tell us?
Well, yeah, I haven't found out how it applies here. It is used to absorb extra water and maintain moisture in certain medications, cosmetics or food products. That's as close as I've gotten. I don't know how it applies here.
Use a
So-
cooling system.
It's for
Air conditioning, so it's nice.
Antifreeze, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's used in the cooling system for the chillers, probably.
We had actually had a glycol leak, I want to say 3 years ago here at the high school. And we had the custodians filtering it through their sweatpants. Literally like saving the glycol until like 2 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, they were amazing at doing that, but yeah.
This is
it's
basically what replaced Freon.
I guess, yeah.
Interesting.
That's
You learn
not
something
allowed
new every day.
anymore. That's not allowed anymore.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I mean. So something had to replace it. Apparently it's glycol.
Unanticipated repairs and maintenance of that to 200,000 from 100,000 because we're another year into old buildings. We have and fully expect to spend 100,000 that we have in the 23-24 budget. Again, with the capital, the reason I think we put it in here is because if we don't use it, we can either save it for the unanticipated for the next year, or we can reallocate it to another project. It doesn't just go back and then we have to put it in the budget again. And I think it's important with the at least 3 years out of having any kind of, if the 3-school model goes through with, whether it's new or renovated or whatever, we still have 3 years of stuff that could go wrong. So I think that's an important allocation. The next one is athletic field upgrades. Again, this is a proposal based on the hope that we'll be able to take care of infrastructure needs another way. We've gotten a number of requests and complaints about the fields, varsity baseball and softball drainage, and also the tennis courts. We repair the tennis courts for about 23,000 every year, so the kids can play. So we certainly need to start saving for a replacement. So this is a request for drainage work at varsity baseball, softball, and the tennis court start saving for the upgrade or the replacement. This also includes the turf replacement. We had that final appropriation, which we talked about a building committee of 130,500, and we've been talking about that. We knew that that was coming because price increased, and so that's included in here as well. The last thing is to start saving for chiller and roof replacement for strong. So year 1 of 5. So we're starting to save for that. Again, if that's a bonding issue, we don't have to save for this, but it could happen. The roof at Strong is, let me see. Let's see, well, the chiller is 20 years old. We did start saving for this last year, so it's just the next portion of that. And the roof, we do have, it's going to be 20 years soon. It can't be replaced before 20 years in terms of the state funding. But this is just to start putting aside money for roof replacement, hopefully over the next 5 years. We don't need to replace it yet, but we don't have anything saved for it. So it's to start to save for it. So that all adds up to $778,000.
I have a question about the tennis court. Is that only used by the students?
They're open to everyone, but our tennis teams do use it. But yeah, anyone can use them. We think, let's see, it'd be about 215,000 total to replace them. We actually do have this. We're gonna get an updated quote after they do the repairs this spring, but the repairs every year are $23,000.
I think it bears just kind of repeating that the strategy you're seeing here is one that tries to be proactive and take advantage of what the state allows us to do versus having to wait till we're kind of at a desperate place and or our only option is to borrow or bond for some of these things. None of it precludes the board from still going out and choosing that as a strategy if it makes sense. But it feels more responsible to me. And it's something that probably we haven't had able to take advantage of fully in the past. And so that's why you're seeing more of those set asides for the future, kind of proactive strategies than just the sky is falling. Let's kind of do it that way. And Kim and I both are on the same mind of that, but we want to make sure you all are as well.
While we're on capital, do we want to, just coming over from building, we want to talk about what's left in the money from the clubhouse?
Yes, so we have $610,000 in capital reserve for the pump house for the fire sprinklers that we aren't going to need the full amount because we are hooked up to public water now. So we can bypass that whole pump and all that kind of infrastructure upgrades that we were saving for. So with that, whatever that ends up costing, it will be significantly lower than the 610,000. So there's funds in there that we can reallocate to projects inside of capital reserve just by a board vote. So we have that ability. We have the culvert grant, which we still need to address, but that is what we're going to allocate towards. And I think we actually already did that. We already did that motion to cover the paving with the culvert grant. But so we will have probably $400,000 for the fire pump that we can reallocate to another project. And we can do that at any time. It doesn't have to be done with this cycle. It's available to us at all times.
Okay.
The last one was, before I get to the questions, the last one was the debt service. So I touched on that last time. And I just trying to come up with a way that I can explain it. I confirmed all this with Matt Ritter, our bond counsel. So you don't have to ask that question. I have run that by him and he agrees completely. So right now what happens is we had a couple of bonds that were in place before I came. They were from maybe Wells and some, work at Brewster, different bonds across the district. And then we issued the 6.9 million bonding in, actually sold it in 2022. It was authorized in 2019. So with that, we have one of our bonds that was in our existing debt is falling off, meaning it's fully paid at the end of 24-25. So that's about $338,000 that our debt service will be less. Now, debt service is the interest and the principal payment on your borrowed money. So it comes out in a schedule, and this is how much you pay every year until you pay it off. Now, you certainly can prepay it, but what's the point of that if you had to borrow the money to begin with? But so with that, our debt service for 24-25 will be reduced by $338,000. So what I'm saying is we're at 960, 970 this year, 970,000. Next year it'll be down to around 630,000. So the strategy here is to use the bond premium, and I'll explain what that is, and the interest income from the money that's in that bank account in capital reserve to pay that portion of the debt service that will reduce it to next year, which is $334,000. The sweet spot of that number is that it level funds it, so there will not be an increase in that debt service line for 25-26. So it'll be, we planned ahead, we know this is what the payment will be, we reduce it to this, and then we're just level funding for that year up. And the bond premium is when you go out and you sell a bond, investors will bid up. And you get actually a bid just like you would for an RFP you have out there, and they bid sometimes at a premium, so they win it. So they want to pay more because it's a good bond and you're good, credit risk, and they want to let you borrow the money, so they pay you a little extra. And that's called a bond premium. And we had a bond premium of, hang on, sorry. All right, it's on a roll. 344,000. So that amount plus the interest. Let's see, we can lower, no, that's what I'm wanting to lower it to, the 344. So we had 347, I want to say, it was just right about the same amount as this. That was our bond premium, and that just sits there. And then the use of that is you can either pay back your debt service with it, or you save it and you use it for one of the projects inside that bonding. So if it were to go over or whatever, you have that cushion. But we also have a contingency in there that if something were to go over, we've got the contingency in there. So the bond premium will help us lower the budget by 0.84 this year if we use those funds, because we're just gonna have to pay it back anyway. So if we pay it back next year or the year after, we're gonna be using those funds to pay it down anyways. It might as well be in this year where we can level fund. For next year, it's like almost the right exact same amount that we need, and we have no increase. And that'll, like I said, decrease it by 0.84. Now, having said that, when you bond money, you have 3 years to spend 85% of it. And we're not there because we have our Brewster money that we have not spent because we still aren't sure of the final, disposition of that building. So if after those 3 years we haven't spent it, we've got to abandon that project and pay the money back too. So just keep that in mind, is something that as we move forward. And then also I've been asked about the interest rate, and before I just want to clear that up, there's the arbitrage. Right now, we are earning 2.54% on that, and we're paying 3.18. And you cannot earn more than you are paying. That's illegal, and so the attorney keeps a close eye on that. So that's how we're making sure that we meet that. So there's some bonding decisions that are going to be coming up soon with the funds that are there. Sorry, I've talked a lot.
So that if you you can reduce this year's budget by doing that by 0.8%.
Yeah. 0.84.
And we recommend that, but we didn't put it in the proposal because it isn't something that Tim's done before, the district has done before.
Right.
We thought this was a good place to kind of throw it out there. And if you all think we should do it, she can make that adjustment between now and the next work session. Or not, if you're not comfortable with that for any reason.
We just see the numbers in the charts when you get a chance. Yes.
So you just want to see the debt service, how it's falling?
Yeah,
That's all
where
I can
the
really
numbers
show.
are in the premium, and then how you're gonna take premium out and apply it.
So how much of the debt service would be the premium and how much would be out of the operating fund? Okay, I can do that. Okay,
And so that would bring the net budget down to under 3.
yes, I didn't do that math, but it would reduce it by 0.84. So it'd be like a 3 point, somebody got a calculator? That's 448 minus 0.84.
That's the gross.
44716.
Sorry, say that again?
447516.
No, 4.48 minus 0.84.
3.64.
3.64.
And then the
Correct.
gross, the net budget would be 3.82 minus the 0.84.
That'd be
So it'd be 2.98. Yep. So that's what we would get is the 364 gross and the 298 net if we were to.
We don't have any debt coming. We haven't any new debt coming until we do something with
Correct.
the next referendum.
Yep. Yep.
And then we would, so you might have a level debt for 4 or 5 years until we start paying money.
Yeah, well, the debt is falling every year. It's not retiring every
Right.
year, right? But it is falling a little bit, not a lot, but they're kind of level payments. But until we bond more for more projects, that'll be the way it.
And we're at a pretty low interest rate on these bonds that we have outstanding, right? There are 3 or so.
Yeah, 3 point, well, actually, this one was the 3.19.
So the new bonding is, right now would be in the fours, probably, or 4.5.
Yep. Any questions, more questions on debt service? All right, so so we had the Google Doc go around, the people put questions in. I'm gonna just try to touch on them really fast. If I talked about it in my presentation, I'll just say that. But one question was about the athletic director. I answered that. We had, you had talked about staffing. Do you want to talk about that here?
Yeah, there was two issues I'd see that bothered me in the budget. One is that we're paying more in Strong School for music than we are in Coggins-on. And I know why, because we moved Tim's salary over there, but I don't think it's correct that we're spending more in the Strong School than we are in the high school that has more activities for music. So, you know, is there a way to get another music part-time person or some other relationship in Strong School? I think, you know, it's hard for me to accept the fact that we're spending more in Strong School for kids who are not in, the band over there is very small right now. I mean, maybe having Tim there will make it bigger, which is a good idea, but on the other hand, you know, it seems like most of our musical activity occurs in the high school, and yet we're not spending that much money on it.
So I can speak to the change, the reduction. And so the reduction of Coggins-on and the increase in Strong was just simply reallocated.
I understand.
Yeah, salary.
And so I'm concerned about that, and if there's a way to strengthen the budget in Strong at a high school, I would like to see how that could happen. And the same as on math, we've lost 2 really good math teachers in the last 3 years. And we've lost a part-time person apparently in this, for about 60 grand that were reduced from last year. I think in terms of our pathways with engineering, our pathways in science and health, not to have in our former commitment to STEAM, we're not funding the appropriate level. I think there's 29 kids in AP calculus, and you know, we have other courses with 4 or 5 people in them, and so you got a major course to track students that are going on to, you know, different places. But we're not really funding the math department as well as we are English and other things. And we've had the reduction in our math scores at the lower levels that continues through the higher levels if we don't get it fixed. And it seems to me that at least the half position that we had there before, I don't know whether that was an interventionist or not. I don't remember what it was, but you know, it ought to be restored. I don't see where a $60,000 cut in the math budget is cost effective in terms of our learning.
So I think what Bob's saying too, and I agree with Bob saying, it's hard knowing that we're approving a budget when we have concerns about the program levels in those areas. So it might be something that we need to talk to about next meeting and have on our actual board meeting. Because it goes outside of finance to have those 2 positions justified and how they are.
You're talking
Math and music, yeah.
Okay, would that be something that we would? Yeah, that'd be in favor.
Well, yeah, because, you know, those were both part of budget actions from years past. And part of the math story is also the new bargaining agreement with the teachers and the fact that department heads are now teaching more than they did before. And I think if you recall last year, they came to you all and gave a pretty detailed analysis of why their class sizes were kind of low. And you know, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they've ever said we wouldn't have a class at 28 or 29 or something like that, especially at the high school level. I don't think that's unreasonable. and I believe within our guidelines, but if there's a desire to add math staff back, I think we
Well,
can do it.
You know, the cut is this year. The 23-24 budget was basically 200,000, now it's 140.
Because there was that 0.6 position that retired. And the department heads are now able to teach one additional class. So what wasn't needed to be replaced, because before, if you were a department head, you only taught 4 out of 5 classes. So now there was additional 1 class.
So the department head is teaching.
So to get into the level of specifics you're asking, I would need Deb and Katie. I
Yeah.
can't answer that.
I would like to talk about it.
I think we need to put it on the agenda, especially before we have another budget discussion.
You guys still here?
I am loving every minute.
It's Linda's favorite.
Okay, let me see. Okay, there were some questions on the track and cross country uniforms, on the replacement schedule. So we do have a replacement schedule for uniforms, and indoor track and baseball were scheduled for 24-25. And they are in the budget for that. Now, that's not to say that if there is a need in another sport, that can't be discussed. You're not necessarily approving what sport at this point gets the uniforms. It's just that we are budgeting for uniforms. So, we do have a replacement cycle, like I said. I think another thing brought up was tennis uniforms, and tennis has gone now to an annual purchase. So those are purchased for boys and girls every year, and that started with this year, just 23-24. I know I just approved a purchase order for that. So the tennis team this year will have the new uniforms. Okay.
Because I think, and that's an annual on the tennis uniforms. So there shouldn't be a reason that our tennis team has uniforms that are not uniformed, correct?
We just changed it to annual.
Okay.
Yes. So this spring is the first year they'll have annual. They'll all have them. And then from there on out, every year. Todd, is it true if they're a returning player, are we still buying a new shirt?
Yeah, so the purpose of going to more of like a annual was so that many times those individuals will play multiple days in a row. And so we went to an annual budget where we would basically allow that individual, they would accumulate a larger set of uniforms over the course of their 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, as opposed to returning, a shirt, a college shirt, a thinner piece of equipment, as opposed to, they would just keep that. And then they phase that out after the 4 years. So every new individual, we would order, as we did with both boys and girls tennis, we would order a set of uniforms, which are different than many other sports, that they would just add and they would wear those. But it's up to the coach to determine what color uniform or what uniform shirt style, whatever that may be, they're wearing on that particular day.
So in the 23-24 budget, there are funds for tennis shirts, which we've already issued a purchase order for. And then in this 24-25 budget request, there's an allotment for tennis again. So it'd be every year. Tennis skirts, is that included in here? Do they wear skirts?
We limited it to just tennis, whatever that uniform or apparel, we called it.
Okay.
And then it's up to the coach to determine what piece of apparel they believe that they need to
Okay.
continue complementing it.
So that could be why they don't look uniform, if they're purchasing different every year.
Could be, because many times you don't have the ability to, if they don't stay in stock, their style might change. So we tried to go with more of the basic bottoms, so that you could continue to buy those year after year. Whether you have a 7th grader that comes up 2 years later, they would still have a very similar style, skirt, bottom, whatever that may be.
And that's how it's done in most districts.
It seems to be, it's the moving trend in forward in that, because, many times in track and field, you have, if you go to the Invitational, you see most of the individuals are all wearing a spandex-like material. That's not really a piece of equipment that I would want to turn back in and give that to somebody else. So we're going with more and more of that trend and using more on the top or the uppers, as opposed to the bottom Because even with the tennis skirts, what we found was a lot of the tennis skirts have that built-in liner.
Yeah.
And again, in my opinion, that's not really a piece of equipment that we want given to multiple people over the course of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years.
Okay, and that, again, that can be discussed later, that the money is budgeted for that, and then, you know. Should we move cross-country and replace baseball, whatever, that we can talk about that, outside of the budget process.
And I think, you know, it's sort of the same, we were talking about, sorry, Raymond, I lost my voice, you know, was that we want to try to make sure that track above all has uniforms that are uniformed, you know, lack of a better word for that one. And that a lot of these kids have relays and they can get disqualified if they're not the same uniform. So if they're using uniforms from indoor track and outdoor track and they're differently, you know, they're two different styles, you've got a possible disqualification there. So I wouldn't want to see a student athlete have to change mid-meet in order to comply with those standards. And Kim and I talked about it, so that's good to see.
Next question was about reduction in supplies. So I'd mentioned last time that I took a straight line 25%, up to 25% off the supplies. And there was a concern about that, that some staff were reporting that they aren't getting the supplies they need. So that was news to me. And I did poll the principals who also said that they were unaware of that. The administrators, they were unaware of that. No one has reported to them they're not getting the supplies they need. However, there have been reports of that. So just to clarify it, what's happening is, you know, we're zero-based budget. So you put in what you need. No one has ever told no to a supply need, unless it's something ridiculous like a flamingo. But if you need something for your classroom, you're going to get it. I think it's beautiful. I don't know where that came from. And even with a 25% straight line reduction, what it might do is it might take your supply line from $100 down to $90 or whatever. It all depends on, you know, the total of the supplies, how it's distributed. No one says to the staff, and I've said to them, that doesn't mean you only have $90. You still have the $100, you are still authorized to buy what you want, because it's going to be offset by the person who doesn't need their supply money. If I were to budget everybody at 100%, the budget increase is going to be higher every single year. It's almost like the vacancy factor. So some people spend all their money, some people don't. And it's every year, and I can tell you, I've looked at 5 to 6 years of budget history of people's supplies, and some do not spend any of it, and some do not spend all of it, and some spend all of it. So it's all over the map. So if I thought that by doing this reduction would remove supplies from students, that would not be my first go-to. That's not the case at all. This is a preventative strategy so that we're not ending the year with these high surpluses in supplies. So please, if anyone thinks that they're not getting the supplies that they need, you need to tell your administrator, we want you to have the supplies you need. So I was surprised to hear that. I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years. I don't know if there's talk out there that, oh, there's been a reduction, so you can't. That never came from my office. So if that is out there, I need to clarify that.
Yeah, I think the clarification is good. It's good to talk about it. And I think too, when we're talking about, you know, building moves and Kim and I talked about it too, we wanted to make sure that, especially with teachers moving and supplies, we wanted to make sure that they had what they needed next year, if they were moving buildings. And so 25% reduction does sound big without that explanation. So I think it's good. It would be good to tell you.
It's a strategy to not have a surplus, again, like the vacancy factor. And the vacancy factor of 98% doesn't mean that Stephanie can only work 98% of her salary. It means that there's going to be an offset somewhere else. So it's the same kind of, you know, rationale. It's just, you know, trying to cut down on these big surpluses of years past that were not popular either. So
I do wonder sometimes if the teachers just don't have time to compose a list. Do we have approved vendors like, I don't know, WB Mason? I don't know what we go with. You know, sometimes you just don't have the time to do it. And itemize everything, find the exact item numbers, submit them to you or
sure.
whomever to get a purchase order and so on. It's,
For sure.
sometimes it's just can't get around to it.
But what troubles me is that they can't get them and they need them, like, that is not the
Right.
case. So
Yeah.
if it's a time issue, then it's a time issue, it's not a access issue.
Kim, with regard to the middle school and pencils, having been a middle school teacher, pencils are a commodity in the middle school. They just kind of disappear before your eyes.
Yeah.
And as a middle school
So-
parent, they show up in my
Yeah.
laundry and in my
Yeah.
washing machine.
Oh, I
So
collect at
what
least
I
a
would
dozen
do
every
in my
day.
classroom is, we had a contest.
I
Who could have the smallest pencil and still sharpen it and have it be working?
Yeah,
And the
hey, I
kids
love
loved it, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, they hung on to their pencils for that.
Yeah.
It was a fun thing.
So yeah,
And
to
they keep
elaborate on
that going
that,
all year.
Cheryl reported pencils, maybe it's about pencils, like we were scratching our heads really. She's like, there was a lot of pencils and we asked the parents to like just reiterate to please, just because they're not paying for them, to still take appropriate care of them and just throw away. Like, that's the level we were at, like saying, what are they talking about?
They do
So,
have to get,
smallest
like,
pencil
they end up in my
contest.
like tray, they're like this big, and they have the giant eraser, and the eraser's bigger than the pencil. I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you're gonna have like arthritis.
Smallest
but
pencil contest.
that's
I love it.
appropriate, you know, you need a new pencil when it's that small, but
I
losing
think they
them,
like it.
throwing them in the,
Oh,
you
that's a
know,
good one.
yeah, you know, that kind of stuff we wish didn't happen.
Yeah, but I think we talked about it enough to figure out where you guys can talk about that.
Perfect. Okay, question about a cost savings of one director of learning. The proposed action for one director of learning would save about $120,000 in 24-25. However, this action would greatly diminish current support for learning by eliminating a current FTE. When the two FTE assistant director positions were established in 22-23, this action was part of an organizational restructure that simultaneously eliminated the director and a teacher FTE with 10 additional per diem days that had supported the learning instruction team. The responsibility of the previous director and the teacher plus 10 are now divided between the two associate directors. So that's the answer to that. There is a savings, however, it would greatly diminish the support levels that we have. There was a question, why was John Lyman's increase so much higher than the other schools? That is not a building operational issue. It's not an increase in the cost of running John Lyman. And it certainly is not a strategy to make it look like Lyman costs more than the other schools. What that has to do with is that the school grade configuration now includes the students who are in other high needs educational institutions outside of the district are following their grade, where their grade would be in the district. So while some are first and second grade, those second graders may be going to third grade at John Lyman, and no, I'm sorry, second grade at John Lyman. And so they might be moving from Brewster to John Lyman. So it's that and that only, is that now those students are just identified with a different school where they would have been. John Lyman didn't have any students outplaced for high needs, and now they do, because of the grade the students in. So that's the reason for that high increase. Let's see, and a little.
The same is true of Memorial.
Memorial as well, yeah, and Strong, the high school actually had a reduction, I think, but for now, yeah. The purchase services for athletics, there was a reduction of 44,000. That was due to the reallocation of the athletic trainer contract to an FTE. It's only 44,000 because this year that we're in, 23-24, we had only budgeted 50,000 for an athletic trainer. So I wouldn't be taking the whole 78 out, right? I'd only be changing from the 50. So this line item, he wants to know, what does this include? This line item includes concussion management, CPR, first aid certification and renewals, and physician services. So that's what's left in there after we move the athletic trainer out. Okay, so we're getting there. Do you want me to keep going? Okay.
Yeah.
Now the finance committee has submitted some questions. These are kind of very specific to different line items in the budget. So equipment expenditures, for 23-24 this year, 7,000 basketball and 5,000 outdoor track. So the question was, why did you have that in 23-24? And that was simple. Those were the shot clocks for basketball and the outdoor track and high jump vault covers. So those are not recurring for 24-25. So that's why there's the decrease in that equipment. That one we talked about. Equipment expense for football, 5,000. That's a 2-man sled included in there. Supplies baseball, we talked about that, the baseball uniforms, and the outdoor track and cross-country uniforms. Question about, the large increase in leases. So this is an important thing. So like I stated before, last time, we are moving from our diesel buses to propane buses, and we're doing a municipal lease because it is saving us money on the daily operation, and also DAC was buying them back in 5 years from us. So with the uniform chart of accounts with the state of Connecticut, leases are classified under the 400 series, which is called facilities and grounds. So you're going to see an increase in facilities and grounds because that's where the lease is in. Even though that doesn't make sense, it's the bus lease. And then you're going to see somewhat of a decrease under operating services because that's where transportation is. So that correlates. There is certainly an increase because things go up every year. So it's not a direct dollar for dollar, but it is a significant decrease in our contract with DACO. Ask what the lease for special ed was. That's just the special ed portion of the bus leases. Capital equipment, PA systems. The roof is strong, no, but we're starting to save for property insurance. There was a big increase. That's because we were under budgeted for this year. So it's a budget correction of 31,000. Our cost came in well above what we had estimated. And we also have added the field house onto that. And also we have to insure the buses now that they're in our name. So that's an increase in theirs for the buses, the field house, and then a budget correction.
Is that the same company?
The same company.
Same insurance company?
Our agent is the same, but
Yeah.
there's different vendors, insurance vendors. And the policies went up 10 to 15% this year. We have auto, we have pollution, we have cyber, we have general liability, and we have student accident insurance all in there. John Lyman, that was the question, why the huge increase? Brewster, there was a big increase in equipment and capital. All the schools, John Lyman and Brewster, will have an increase in their equipment and capital because the district was budgeting at the district level for things such as Lexia, iReady, and Kiddo. That's been moved down to the building level. So it came out of the district level and it's down at the building level. Brewster is requesting a dock camera and a couple of new smart boards on wheels. And also there's going to be a new dishwasher. So we bought a dishwasher for the high school this year. We're buying a dishwasher for Brewster next year. So it's in the rotation. Our budgets, our building administrators given expectations are what to budget, or do they just do a flat increase? So the answer to that is no, we're zero based. So we base on what we need. They can and they do submit proposals, which are vetted by the entire administrative team on the priority of the inclusion in the budget. The majority of them don't make it, only those that are mandated or pressing need. So no, they're not told budget. We tell them don't budget what you budgeted last year. We don't want you to do that. We want you to budget on what you need. And I understand and we accept big variances because one year you buy shot clocks and the next 10 years you don't need to buy them.
We want to leave the last couple pages for week's
Yeah.
work session.
Sure.
Ask it until the questions between now and then, give us some extra to discuss.
Okay.
And I just need a quick clarification. When we
Yeah.
talked about the high school and the math,
Mhm.
I thought you said wait till the next regular board meeting. But the next budget work session is before the next
next
regular
budget
board
session.
meeting, so
Maybe should we call a special for them? We can do that.
I think they'd be comfortable with presenting here like they did last year.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that would be easier.
If they had anything ahead of time, that might help.
Sure.
What's the date on our next meeting?
March sixth.
It's March 6th.
Yep.
March sixth.
Yeah, and the next
That'll
regular
work
meeting
out.
is on the 13th, so.
No, the only other question I had, and Tim answered it, is that the staff charts in here are for the current year. They don't show next year proposed.
They do not include the proposed 2.5 change next year.
Is there any way to show that in here?
We didn't feel we needed to, we were showing the current. I mean, we can update them.
Well, it doesn't
Wouldn't be
show where
hard to
the,
do.
doesn't show where the, like, the trainer goes, it doesn't show, that there's 4.6 in math with the 4, it doesn't show stuff like that.
Okay.
And I think, if there's, I can do it myself, but I just wanted to show the proposed staff. I mean, it says proposed budget, but it doesn't show the proposed staff. So,
Are any of the staffing positions covered by ESSER?
No.
I just,
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you asked
Yeah.
that we're, Doug, to his credit more so than to mine, no fiscal cliff, no
Nice.
hiring staff for the, the only staff that we did with the ESSER is a 2-year position for mental health, and that was specifically for that grant was for the
Yeah.
mental health stuff. And we
Didn't make
hired
me very
police.
popular with staff when I first got here, but I just,
Yeah.
I've been
As
there and
we
done
know-
that.
as
Been
we
there
know
and done
from-
that with
from the
previous.
levels, what the amount
federal-
of staffing that was covered under the ESSER funds in a lot of districts.
Yeah, there's
and
a
the
lot of
fiscal cliff
districts
is
that-
huge.
We're
Who
trying
did
to add,
not
some are
move
trying to add some
positions.
positions.
Well, another crying foul to the state about
Yeah.
what the state.
There's a lot, we're
I
getting
don't-
a lot of surveys from
Oh,
different organizations asking us about
Yeah.
our.
We all knew this was coming.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of districts made the move over the last 2 years to take these positions and move them back into the budget. Not back into, move them into the budget. But the districts that didn't, there's some people who are out of a job.
well, it might be helpful for us to get some positions.
Right, so with that, do you have any, points that we want for next session? Or should I try to come up with some stuff between Kim and today's meeting and bring it back for next, and we can keep updating the spreadsheet that's in there too with questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fascinated by the bond issue, so I think
Bring that up again.
we get how we use that,
So,
and keeping level debt service means, there's some flexibility in what we do with that $300,000 in the budget.
And we have to, that will help towards our 85% 3-year rule too, that we've got to spend 85%.
Yeah,
we'll have some pretty significant things to talk about, next session, like really give some direction to admin if we're gonna make any decisions, next meeting. Anyone else have any other questions before I lose my voice completely? Let's try really. Oh, we still have another thing.
We
after this.
do.
Just kidding. I knew if I said that. All right, so we'll move on. Number 5, possible bus lease resolutions.
Yes, so with the propane buses, we're doing a municipal lease, and this is just the resolution for this board to authorize me to enter into that lease on behalf of the district. The reason this does not need to go to a referendum or any kind of thing is that because it has an appropriation clause. So if there are not funds appropriated for this lease in any given year, the lease is null and void. So it's not a binding debt for 5 years out, it's year by year. So the resolution is very long. I don't know if people got to see it. We put it in the link. Okay, good. So if you don't need to read it, we can waive that reading and you can make a motion to authorize, let's see, the governing body to authorize and execute the delivery of a master governmental lease purchase agreement. Yeah, so just to resolution to authorize the Director of Finance to enter in for execution and delivery of a master governmental lease purchase agreement.
So moved.
Second. I'll do roll call on this one. All those in favor, Maura and Amanda,
Amanda, yes.
Maura,
Maura, yes.
aye. Lucy Petrella, aye. Lindsay Bellheimer, aye.
Jamie Rebecca.
Linda Darcy, I.
Bob line.
Opposed, they abstain. Awesome. Motion passes. Okay.
Kim, I don't have the buses?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Ready to go. They got them. Yeah.
Motion to adjourn. Linda.
So moved.
No, we didn't have a second public comment, so. Wait a second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Your hair.
I feel.
No, you were. Well, I was thinking somewhere.